Hi everyone, and welcome to Talk It Out, the podcast where we explore how to become better, braver, and more confident speakers in any language. I'm Lena, your host today, and I'm joined by someone who's not only a language teacher but also a language learner himself, Omar. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much, Lena. It's a pleasure to be on the show. I'm really excited to talk about speaking skills because it's one of those areas in language learning that feels personal and powerful at the same time. When you start expressing yourself out loud in another language, it's like you're unlocking a whole new part of yourself.
Absolutely. And you know, when I talk to learners, so many of them tell me that speaking is their biggest fear. They can read, they can write, they even understand what people are saying, but when it's their turn to speak, their mind just goes blank. Why do you think that happens?
I think part of it comes down to pressure. When we speak, we feel like we have to perform, like we need to get everything right on the first try. But in reality, speaking is a skill that gets better through making mistakes, not avoiding them. Learners often forget that even native speakers make errors, correct themselves, and keep going.
That's such a great point. And I also feel like there's this idea that if you don't sound fluent, people won't take you seriously, which creates a lot of anxiety. But the truth is, most people are incredibly supportive when you're trying to speak their language. They care more about understanding you than judging you.
Yes. And that's why having a safe space to practice is so important. Whether that's with a friend, a language partner, or even by talking to yourself, you need to give yourself permission to speak freely, without worrying about how perfect it sounds. Confidence grows when you stop trying to be flawless.
I love that. And speaking of practice, a lot of people ask me, how can I practice speaking if I don't live in an English-speaking country? What would you say to that?
That's a common question, and I always tell people, you don't need to be in an English-speaking country to speak English. Thanks to technology, you can have conversations with people all around the world. Language exchange apps, online tutors, conversation clubs, even podcasts like this can be the start of a speaking habit.
Exactly. And even if you can't find someone to talk with right away, you can still build your skills. I tell my students to start by narrating their day out loud. Like, I'm making coffee, or now I'm getting ready for school. It sounds simple, but it helps you build fluency because you're connecting language to real life.
That's actually one of my favorite tips. Another one is practicing speaking in chunks, not just single words. For example, instead of memorizing the word restaurant, you learn full phrases like I'd like to order, or do you have a table for two? That way, you train your brain to speak in patterns, not just translate in your head.
Yes. That idea of chunks or collocations really changed the game for me. When I was learning German, I started noticing how native speakers used groups of words together naturally, and when I started copying those patterns, I sounded more fluent, even if I didn't fully understand every single grammar rule.
That's the magic of language acquisition. When you speak more, you start internalizing those patterns without needing to analyze them. And the more you repeat them, the faster your mouth gets used to forming those sentences. It's almost like building muscle memory for your tongue.
It really is. And you know what else helps with that? Listening and mimicking. I always tell learners to listen closely to native speakers, from movies, YouTube channels, or even songs, and then repeat what they hear, copying their tone, pace, and rhythm as much as possible. It's not just about the words, it's about the music of the language.
I couldn't agree more. In fact, one of my favorite activities is shadowing, where you repeat what someone says in real time. It's intense, but it forces your brain to focus completely on how the language sounds. And over time, your pronunciation and fluency improve without you even realizing it.
I remember doing that with an interview clip once, and I was shocked at how much I improved after just 20 minutes. It made me realize how passive my listening had been before, just watching and hoping the words would stick. But when you actively engage, it transforms the way you learn.
And it also builds confidence. Because after practicing that way, when you go into a real conversation, you feel ready. It's not about knowing every word, it's about knowing how to keep the conversation going, how to ask for clarification, how to respond naturally. All of that comes with repetition.
Yes, and I want to emphasize something here. Confidence isn't the result of being perfect. Confidence is the result of knowing that even if you aren't perfect, you can still communicate. That's what really matters.
Beautifully said. And maybe we can talk a bit about how to handle mistakes when speaking. Because let's be honest, mistakes are going to happen. They should happen. But how do you react to them in a way that helps you grow instead of shutting down?
That's such a good question. I always tell learners to treat mistakes like feedback, not failure. If someone corrects you, say thank you. If you hear yourself saying something wrong, try to fix it and move on. Every mistake you notice is a chance to improve. And most of the time, people admire your effort, they don't judge it.
Exactly. And I think people forget that fluency isn't about speaking fast, it's about speaking clearly and with confidence. You don't need fancy vocabulary. You need to be able to say what you mean, even if it's simple. And that skill comes from practice, not perfection.
And speaking of practice, the last thing I'd say to anyone listening is, don't wait for the perfect moment to start speaking. Don't wait until your grammar is perfect, or until you've memorized 1,000 words. Start now. Speak to your pet, your reflection, your phone, just speak. The words will come.
Yes, speak every day, even if it's just for 5 minutes. The more you speak, the more natural it feels. And the more natural it feels, the more confident you become. Over time, you'll look back and realize how far you've come, not because you studied harder, but because you practiced smarter.
That's such a great note to end on. Omar, thank you so much for joining me today. I think a lot of people are going to walk away from this episode feeling inspired and ready to speak more.
Thank you, Lena. This was a really meaningful conversation. And to everyone listening, keep speaking, keep learning, and be proud of every step you take.
We'll see you next time on Talk It Out. Until then, speak boldly and speak often. Bye for now.